Okay, before you all get started with working in your watercolor, see this? That's where people have been mixing watercolor. You need to clean that out before you leave, because all it's doing is leaving a job that is yours for someone else. So please take the time, just get a tissue paper, dip it in some clean water, and wipe that out. Okay, it's not hard, it's difficult. Some people decided that they're not going to do it, but you are. Okay, so as you can see, I have my watercolor tape down on all four sides. You need to do this because with as wet as this watercolor is going to get with your landscapes, this is going to hold the watercolor paper flat, and that's very important for when it's drying. Do not take this off until it is dry. That's why you have a piece of cardboard. And this is going to be wet on wet, so you want to get this fairly. You also want to be careful of the colors that you add together. Okay, reason being is that if I add yellow to this, you're going to have a green sky. So you want to make sure that the colors are going to work. You don't want to use complements together because it will not work. It will turn to mud and you will not be happy. So if you want to use yellow, make sure you add a little bit of red. See how the red in between is kind of helping that color not turn green. Okay, and I'm just going to keep on adding more and more yellow. This is going to be like either a dawn or evening picture. I'm not really sure. I'm going to add some more water down here. Now with these, you are going to be able to choose whatever color you want. Just remember that you are working in watercolor, so that means that it is going to be transparent. It's going to be light in color. You can go back and add more color in to get more depth. Okay, you do not have to color the entire picture opaque. See how I've left some of the color of the paper through? So you want to kind of work with that. And you could probably just work with one paintbrush as you want. That's too wet. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of black. And you'll notice if your paint is too wet to make a line, see how it blurs out? If that's the way it is, let it dry. See, yeah, that's too wet. Excuse me. But what I could do is just go ahead. I'm going to make a few trees. Now see how I'm holding my paintbrush. I'm not holding my paintbrush. I'm using just pretty much the tip of it. And just be careful with using too much. And you can come back and add more color to it. You know, if you need it to be darker, you can add some blue and go that route. Now, here's one thing. Some people are like, there's no white in there. No, there is not. Usually you do not have white with watercolor because, one, you use the water for the actual lightening of the color. But let's say you want to put some stars in there like what you saw in the video if you watched that before. One, you could splatter if you wanted to. If you want it more controlled, you could add this is just a little bit of, I think it's acrylic, but just make a little, or if you want it to look like there's snow on, this is more of a spring type picture, but if you want it to look like snow, you could do that. Let's say, you know, you want to pick up some of this color. All you have to do is add a little bit of water to rehydrate it. Don't scrub it, you just want to tap it. Now, you are more than welcome to, one, search images of what you might like to do. There is a complete playlist. I think there's like 58 different videos that Ellen Trent has created. I really, really like her watercolor style. So that's the artist that is our diversity artist for this project. Oh yeah, this is still too wet. You can also, if you like, use the pencils, the colored pencils, watercolor pencils if you want. If you are wanting to do a tree with no branches, or with branches but small branches, you want to make sure that you are using the very, very, very tip of your paintbrush. Don't add a lot of pressure. Okay. Yeah, the paper's still too wet, that's why it's bleeding out. So that can get you some ideas about what to do. If you're wanting to go to make a darker green for the background, just mix you some blue and green, bluish green, and then you can tap it in. Okay, and something else that you can also do is if you have you can use a paper clip for this if you wanted to. If you wanted to make some texture, see how that's kind of pulling? It's making it look like it's got marks coming out of it. Okay, you could do that. There's a lot of other things. You can also, it's like if you wanted your sky to have a little salt, so it gets that little effect to it, the starburst effect. Now remember, it needs to be wet when you add the salt. And then you leave it because it has to dry, and usually the effect shows up a couple hours later. But just have fun with this. This is our last, you're going to be doing 2 of these. The last, you're going to, oops, sorry, I got distracted. You're going to be doing 2 of these. I would choose 2 different ones. In those videos, there's so much stuff, so many examples that she has completed that are really, really good. So you can get like an extra little scrap to kind of play around with. You can use a pencil or a watercolor pencil to lightly sketch in your idea. But whatever video you choose, please watch it first before you start. Because you're only getting 2 pieces of watercolor paper and that's it, and they're 6 by 6. So if you mess up, you are going to have to wait for it to completely dry and then flip it over. So there's nothing I can do about that. There's 70 of you, and so that's 140 pieces of paper that's going to be going out, and that's quite a bit. So all this is going to be due on November 4th. If you finish before then, and that's with everything, all the painting, you are able to work on other things. If we work quick enough, we may up the due date to the 3rd or the 2nd, depending on how things go. So if you have any questions, please ask, but have fun.